Hi, this is Sandy with a little bit of glitter, and today I have a card featuring the new Fawn stamp set, Garden Mouse. This was a stamp set that was released just to brick and mortar stores, so it isn't available on their website. I also decided to pull out one of my old interactive die sets called Magic Color Slider. I haven't used this set for, I would say, years. I used it once for Christmas cards, and then I just kind of forgot about it. But this seemed to be like the perfect stamp set to use for that particular die. Anyway, go ahead and hit subscribe if you'd like to be notified of future videos. You can follow me on Instagram at Sandy Cogdill or on my blog, A Little Bit of Glitter. Let's get started. To start out, I've cut my Magic Color Slider out of light brown wood grain cardstock. I'm going to go ahead and just lightly touch up those edges with a little bit of Vintage Photo Distress Oxide ink. It just kind of gives it a nice softer edge and just a little bit of definition. It also kind of highlights that wood grain of the cardstock. I don't have to worry about the whole piece. I just have to go up to where that fold is created by the die and do the distress oxing right there where that slider moves in and out. Now that I have that inked, I'm going to put some very thin double-sided adhesive around the outside of that frame opening, and then I will place a piece of acetate on top of that. There is a part of the die set that cuts out the perfect size of the acetate. Now that I have my acetate applied to the frame, I'm going to start laying out the picture on that piece of acetate. It's important that the picture on your acetate will line up with the picture that you're going to put on underneath the acetate, the one that's going to be colored, the one that's actually exposed when you pull that little tag out. So I have found it's the easiest to get those lined up by using my MISTI. So what I'll do is I will place my stamp pieces on my MISTI where I want them, and then I will stamp them on my acetate. The only drawback about this particular die and having to stamp on acetate is that you really need to use StazOn ink. And that's the only thing that's going to permanently adhere to acetate, but it will also permanently adhere to your stamps. So once you use that on your stamps, your stamp will be permanently black. So that's just one thing to keep in mind. Because I wanted it to look like the little mouse was actually holding the watering can, I needed to stamp that first and then mask it. So I will stamp that, cut out a little piece of mask, cover that watering can, and then lay in my little mouse and get her stamped. Okay, now that I've got those on my little piece of acetate, I'm going to go ahead and slide in the white piece of paper that's going to go behind that and start creating my scene on the white piece of paper. So I will line that up in my MISTI, and you can see I'm pretty much just sliding it all the way over and to the bottom of the MISTI. And then I will start creating the same scene pretty much in the same way that I did on the acetate. So I'm going to start with the little piece of dirt, the little watering can first. I'm going to be using just the regular Memento ink now. I don't need to use any more of the StazOn ink. So the process is pretty much the same. I'm going to lay my stamps exactly where I want them on the acetate so I know where to place them in my MISTI. Once I've got them placed on the acetate, I will close the MISTI on top of that so they're in the right spot, and I will remove my acetate piece, and then I will stamp them on the white cardstock. I will just keep building on that scene. I decided I wanted a sun and some clouds, and then of course, since she's been watering that little mound of dirt, we had to have something grow. So I took the tomato plant from the Veggie Happy set and added that to my little white piece of cardstock. The little clouds and sun are from the All the Clouds stamp set. Now that I've got my little image all stamped, I'm going to go ahead and start coloring it in. I am using Copic markers for all of the coloring on this. For the greens, I am using YG17 and G82. The little mound of dirt is E57 and E59. The sky is B000. her little hat is B91 and B97. The tomatoes and her little apron are R11, R17, and R29. The sun is Y04, Y08, and Y18. For the little mouse, on the inside of her ears, I'm using R20 and R22. I use R22 on her little teeny nose. And then for the rest of the mouse, I am using E31, E33, and E37. The little watering can is C01, C02, and C03. I will also touch up the clouds with a little bit of C01 just on that left-hand side, just so that they're not quite as harsh. I'm going to use my white gel pen to add some little polka dots to her apron. I just thought that would be cute. And then to add some little highlight marks to the different little things like the tomatoes, the sun, some of the leaves, and her little watering can and hat, and even the little mouse. Now it's time to start assembling our little slider. I'm going to put some double-sided adhesive on the back of my little colored piece, and then I'm going to lay it on top of my acetate and line it up as best as I can so it's as clear an image as I can get it. It's not going to be perfect, but I'm going to get it as close as I possibly can, and then I will close the back side of that piece on top of the image so that it's lined up as best as I can get it. Now I'm going to apply very thin double-sided adhesive tape to both sides of the little bracket that's going to go on the inside of that slider. I'm going to peel off the tape on the back side of that bracket and then line it up with the outside edges of that card. As you can see, I have the little slider piece already inserted. That helps guide me as to where those outside pieces need to go. This particular card has a yellow insert in it. As I got done with the card, I decided that yellow was just a really awful color with everything else. So I wound up going back and cutting out a piece of green paper from the Watercolor Wishes paper, just because that yellow was just way too much with everything else on the card. Anyway, I got that stuck down, and then I'm ready to move on to the next step. For my little slider piece, I wanted to put a sentiment on it, but I wanted to make sure that I had that sentiment in the right spot so it wasn't interfering with my little mouse and her watering can. So what I did was I put some removable or temporary adhesive on the back of that slider piece, stuck it inside where it would be on my slider, and then placed it, kind of flipped it over and placed it in my MISTI where it would be in that window so that I could place my little sentiment on top of that acetate window once again, get it all lined up, and then I can close my MISTI on it and then remove the acetate window and stamp directly onto my green slider tab. Hopefully that makes some sense. Now that I have my little slider all completed, it's time to finish assembling my color slider. So I'm going to go ahead and insert that into my little card. I'm going to run it through a few times just to make sure it slides nice and easy. I also want to make sure that my card is not getting caught on any of the side pieces that I adhered down. I'll go ahead and peel up that tape and then close that panel with the acetate down on top of the exposed tape. I do spend a little bit of time doing this just because things do shift and move, and I want to get, again, that image that's on the acetate as close as possible to the image that's been colored that's down on the bottom of that mechanism. So I don't just automatically close it on top because that would leave a very fuzzy image. So I do take some time, kind of wiggle it back and forth and figure out the best placement of where to shut that top piece. And again, making sure that my slider moves back and forth freely. It takes a little bit of time, a little bit of patience, but you'll get it. Now that we have our slider mechanism all built, it's time to go ahead and finish assembling the card. I've cut out a piece of red cardstock using that die, and I'm going to glue that little red arrow onto the tab. It kind of helps the recipient know what to do with the card. I will also put some foam tape on the back of that whole mechanism. It gives it just enough lift so that the recipient can get their fingers underneath that tab and slide it out somewhat easily. I'll go ahead and center that as best I can up towards the top of the card because I want to do some decorating of the card base down below, and I need that room. I had already cut out and assembled the Stitched Garden Veggie dies, so I'm going to go ahead and put them at the bottom of the card also. So I'm going to pop those up also with some foam tape, but one layer of the foam tape wasn't going to be enough. They still kind of were a little bit wonky, so I needed to add another layer of a thinner foam tape just so that they were nice and even. So I will just go ahead and add another layer of foam tape to the bottom of those, and then just glue on, just put a little bit of glue where they'll attach to the frame of the magic color slider. Well, that's pretty much it for this card. I really love that the new little garden mouse ties in so well with the Veggie Happy stamp set. And again, I love the little die-cut vegetables and the little root vegetables. I've used them actually quite a few times in some past cards. Go ahead and give me a thumbs up if you've enjoyed this video. You can hit subscribe if you want to be notified of future videos. You can also follow me on Instagram at Sandy Cogdill or on my blog, A Little Bit of Glitter. Thank you for stopping by, and I hope you have a great day. Bye-bye.